Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lozano.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wednesday night's Q&A edition of the Rangers Journal. My name is Chris, and I will be your host for this evening. You have got a fantastic panel lined up. We've got three excellent gentlemen, all of the older variety, I think. I don't know ages. I'm not going to quite go into that, but we'll find out. We'll ask the questions later on. John, how are you, my friend? Are you good?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I am definitely of a certain vintage. I'll put it that way. That's all I'm saying.
Great stuff. Stevie, how are you doing, my friend? Loving the that's the Brian Laudrup. I always call that the Brian Laudrup kit that you've got on there, mate. That is tremendous. That one. How are you doing, pal?
I'm good, mate. I know you love this top, so that's why I wore it. But I'm good. The horrors of life as a Rangers fan persist, but so do we, lads. So do we. So we're still here.
Absolutely. Craig, welcome. You were just saying to us there that you survived your escapades with the Union Bears. How did that one go? Everything all right?
Absolutely. I didn't get anywhere near the pitch, and I have to confess that as soon as Gassama put the ball over the top, I turned on my heels and went. So I had no idea what was going on after that. It was I just wanted to get out of there as quickly as I could.
Absolutely. Well, gents, we're 3 days on from the Scottish Cup crash out, is what we would probably call it at the moment. It's still raw, I think, for a lot of people at the moment. Lots of discussions ongoing in the media about it, which we'll touch on, and lots of discussions to have. The attention now, I think, for Rangers, rightly so, focuses back to the league. We've got 9 cup finals, as Danny Rule is mentioning it. So lots to talk about tonight. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions coming in, but if there's not, we've got questions we can throw at you guys, so be prepared for some tough ones coming your way. As ever, gents, with these type of nights, nothing's off the table. We like to ask the hard-hitting questions that others maybe won't, and we like the hard-hitting responses that comes back with that. So be prepared for tonight, because it's going to be a good one, I think. But housekeeping, let's kick off with our proud sponsors, which is the Bluebells Bar in Puerto del Carmen and Lanzarote. If you're over there and you're looking for a good Rangers bar to go to, then that is the one. They are very welcoming. They're a family-friendly bar who show all the Rangers games live, and I also understand they maybe show one or two of our faces on the Rangers Journal, which, if you're like us and you're sick of the sight of seeing us, then unfortunately just have another beer at that point in time when they've got it on. But look, they're great guys over there, and they'll take very good care of you. So if you're over in Lanzarote, please go over and see them, say hello to them, and have a drink on us, because they're a really good guys over there, and they do so much for the pod. So thank you very much, guys, as always. Thank you to everyone for tuning in so far. If you can, folks, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps all the Facebook, YouTube, X algorithms that someone more than me is more technical to be able to answer on that one, but it absolutely helps all that stuff. So if you can, please share it far and wide, and please get your questions into the guys. The guys are ready and waiting to answer all your questions, and we will see where we end up in about 50 minutes or so. John, can I start with yourself tonight, please, mate? 3 days on, as we said, from the Scottish Cup exit at the hands of Celtic. Just in terms of the game, first and foremost, what's your overall summary of the game, would you say, John?
Immensely frustrating. I think if you'd asked me at 12:45 the Sunday before, here's how the next week and a bit's going to go, I just couldn't believe it. I wouldn't have thought it. I thought the team was fine. I would probably have started Diamande instead of Raskin. That was probably the only thing in the team lineup that was a bit like, oh, I'd maybe done that. But so I was happy with that. But we've done this thing yet again where the pace of play, what we've seen second half against Kelly, Hearts, first half a couple of weeks ago, was this high intensity, this playing with pace, playing with real conviction in terms of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I felt like on Sunday we got the frighteners second half last week, and we kind of stepped off a little bit, as opposed to going full-blooded on it.
Yeah.
And just, I think, I don't know, Craig being in the game, don't know if any of the others were at the game, kind of felt like after about maybe 60 minutes, this is going to penalties. We're no team scoring here. And if they do, it's going to be a bit of a fluke. so you can kind of tell straight away. And I really kind of, my fear right now is that we're about to spiral.
Mm-hmm.
Going to St Mirren on Sunday, probably not the ideal fixture for us, given everything that's been on with us there. If we had a nice home game, I think comfortable we could have got a win, maybe felt a bit different. My concern is that going to throw us into a tailspin right now. So, yeah, pretty gutted. I'll say this, I felt worse on Monday about it. I felt more angry on Monday than the game on Sunday. But,
absolutely. I think to your point about it was going to be penalties. I'd say that I was watching it with my father-in-law. I never had tickets. My seat was taken in the Broomlin, unfortunately, and I never went elsewhere. So stayed at home, watched it with the father-in-law, and to be honest, he said probably at half-time, John, he said the exact same thing. This has got 1-0 written all over it, is what his point of it was. Didn't really think penalties. I thought maybe somebody would have snatched it, but yeah, it was one of those games, and it just felt that way. Really poor quality as well at certain points in time through the game, I thought, which is a bit of a challenge. Stevie, 2 games now against Celtic at Ibrox back to back. We haven't won any of them. It felt like a defeat the first one, given the fact that we were in the situation of being 2-0 up and they've came back. And then obviously the second one they've taken us to penalties. Against what you could probably arguably say was a really poor lineup from Celtic's standards from what they've had in the last few years. Does that mentality shift happen now for Rangers in terms of it's in their mindset that you've had 2 games there, you've not won the 2 at home, that has an impact on the next one? Does that have that impact, or does we go into the next game against Celtic Park in a few weeks' time? Will that be totally forgotten about and that doesn't take into consideration? What's your thoughts on that one, Mick?
I think obviously, as you say, there's a few games between then and now before the split happens. So it really, to me, everything is new on Sunday. We've not got a great record against St Mirren, to be fair, so it's a huge test, like straight away. I'm quite nervous about that, to be fair, but as John's kind of covered, we might spiral, and there's nothing really evidence-based to suggest that they won't, so it's a huge test. Again, a few people will question the manager. I don't question the manager. Both games against Celtic, at the end of the day, Martin O'Neill, he played the hand he had, and he couldn't have played it any better because they are an average team, but he got the job done. So I think his experience is what's really kind of been the key over those 2 games at Ibrox, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, Parkhead, just if we can somehow win every game between now and the split, then I'll start believing. But to be honest with me, after the draw, the league game, I thought at that point the league was beyond us because we could potentially win every game and still not be champions. And I think what Sunday really kind of nailed or proved again is that Tav and Suter, we're never going to, I don't think we'll win a league with those 2 guys. And nothing against Tav, he's been fantastic, but Suter especially, he only came on the second part of extra time and he gave me a heart attack. It's just, he's not, I don't think Rangers win the league when he's there. I think we've given him a contract to sell him in the summer, get a fee. He's still an international, so we should get a bit of cash from him. But to your question, huge question marks about the mentality. And it's not something that Rowe can change in like 6 months. He's done a lot of good work in that time, but ultimately there's players there that have failed repeatedly. So I think we got rid of a lot of deadwood in January, and I think there's more to go in the summer. That's my view.
Absolutely. Craig, I believe obviously you were at the game on Sunday. You've seen firsthand obviously what Rangers offered up through the game. Is it a concern that was essentially our best starting 11? If you looked at that squad, everyone would have probably put on paper saying, bar maybe 1 or 2, I'm maybe talking Chukwueze for Diamonde or maybe one other in there, right? Is it a concern that we played our best side? And we probably played our best side in the game before that, and we've come away. Celtic have come in 2 games, not their best side. We've spent, people keep saying in the region, Craig, of about 50 million over the course of the season so far. Is it a concern that we've came away from those 2 games not even laying a glove on them?
It's a hard one because we were also so utterly dominant on Sunday in a way that I can't remember, even with the 9 in a row team. There would always be parts of games when we played against them where, the 2 teams would stand toe-to-toe and trade punches and stuff. 24 shots in the game they'd won. And And so it was clear what they were there to do, and they did it. But it just took that breakthrough, and that breakthrough just didn't come. And it's a funny one because I'm sure we're all the same watching it, thinking we aren't going to score, and it's just one of those days.
Yeah.
But I think on another day, we win that game very, very comfortably. But it just needed one of those shots early on or whatever to find the target. Now, I'm not making excuses for it because, at the end of the day, you don't score goals, you don't win matches. But I don't think if they'd come, played that game, scored twice on the break, and beaten us quite comfortably in the end, I think I'd be more worried. I think we're heading in the right direction, but it's a bit slower than people hope or want. And I think we're going to have to be patient, but we're not a very patient bunch. And that goes for all of us. It's not just me.
Absolutely. Staunch Geezer saying we're in desperate need of a clinical finisher, Craig, which I totally agree with. I think it's been good to see Jamaica score his couple of goals against Celtic over a couple of those games, but we just don't have a clinical finisher up there at the moment. Nadiri's still getting time to come up to speed. That could be the difference. I think we all said it months ago. Having that clinical finisher could be the difference in winning the league and not winning the league. So, we'll see how it goes starting on Sunday against St Mirren on this one.
Well, you maybe do remember myself and Scotty in particular getting very excited about Joel Perreault being a potential signing in January, and that's exactly the guy you want, a kind of Chris Boyd type who probably frustrates people because they don't have that work rate, but actually put the ball at their feet in the box and they'll score.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Okay, let's just pause for a wee second and we'll come on to one of our newest features we've had over the last couple of weeks on the Q&A, and it's Who's That Jer is what we were looking at. Some may have already seen in the background, some of the guys, so apologies, we've already seen some of these hints, but this is this part of the show where we're going to give you a guessing game here. We've got a guessing game in terms of Who's That Jer. This one, we're going to give you five clues in total, and the 5 clues will all represent a time when they've done something for Rangers. So this player, clue number 1 is I made my Rangers debut against Kilmarnock. Now what I will do is I'll add it in to say this was in Walter Smith era number 2. So this was in his second era, and this player made his debut against Kilmarnock. That's the first clue. If you know who it is from that first guess, pop it into the comments. We won't say who it is at the moment. We'll wait till all the clues are done and then we'll reveal. But if you think you know who it is, John, don't you give the answer away, because I know you know the answer already, so please don't give it away. If you know who the answer is, pop it in the comments, let us know, see if we can play along, folks. And just in the sake of time, I'll also give you clue number 2 at this moment in time as well. And clue number 2, in addition to Rangers, I played for Stoke City among others. So there's your first 2 clues. I'll give you about 10 minutes to have a think about it, folks. But clue number 1, made my Rangers debut against Kilmarnock, Walter Smith era part 2. And then the second clue is, in addition to Rangers, I played for Stoke City among others. If anyone can have a guess, please pop it in and let us know what your thoughts are. There will be some obvious answers to this one, John, I'm imagining, and we had the same one ourselves when we thought we see that second clue. But all I'm going to say is it's not the obvious one. Would that be fair to say, John? It's not the obvious?
It's not the obvious one.
There you go.
Because I think the obvious one I actually forgot. So it wasn't obvious to me.
Yeah.
I think somebody's coming to my mind, and I suspect that's who it is.
Yeah. A few have put on already. Staunch Geezer said Richard Gough. It's not that he was Walter Smith era part 1. A couple of others are saying Charlie, which is Charlie Adam, they're saying. So yeah, let's see. Let's see where we go. But yeah, 2 clues for the moment, and we'll bring them back up at a later point in time.
Just quickly, is it a midfielder,
Yes.
John?
Good question, Stevie. That's a really good question. A midfielder, maybe. Maybe a
Black
striker.
guy.
maybe a
I think
defender.
he's a midfielder. Black fella, I
Could
can't
be.
remember his name. I think it's him.
Could be. We'll see how it goes through. I want to just mention Doug. Doug has put together all our pictures for this evening. So thank you, Doug, as always, for the wonderful graphics. He is saying how many extra clues we're going to give everyone. Look, I get it, Doug, but the first one, I had to say the first one was Walter Smith either part 2, because if we didn't, people would have been wondering, well, that is so. There we go. But Doug, thank you very much for pulling this together for us. It's greatly appreciated. John, I want to come to yourself, please, if we can. Now, again, I'm not wanting to spend too much time on this tonight, but I think it's prudent. It's been the topic of conversation across all media outlets over the last few days, and I think it's rightly so that we bring this up. I think, first of all, I'll just caveat it, John, by saying there was wrongs on both sides of the fan base on Sunday, and there was many wrongs. So I'm not going to sit and put them out there just now, because there was many wrongs from both sides. My question to you, John, is around the balanced media view, and probably a follow-on to that is, are Rangers doing enough at the moment? Right now, I know we haven't had a statement from Rangers. There hasn't been a statement for Celtic. I think there's a clamour from the media at the moment to get one of those statements, to see who they throw under a bus at the same time, whatever club that's going to be. Is there enough balanced view on this, John, from your perspective, in terms of what you've seen so far, given the situation that both clubs put people in danger on in terms of the actions on the park? Have you seen a balanced media view on that? Or is this the age-old Rangers fans are always the ones who are blamed for something whenever anything happens? We've seen this before with the Hibs game. We said before in many decades ago as well, when things have happened, and a lot of the attention was on Rangers. Is this the same, do you think, this time round, or is it just the propaganda from certain media outlets are pushing what they think is the outcome that they've seen on Sunday?
Well, first off, there isn't a balanced view, because you're kind of in that place of, you touched it last, therefore it's yours. The last thing we see was Rangers fans coming on the park, everything's your fault. So I can give you my experience on the day from a couple of perspectives. First thing was, and this is going to be similar to some of the guys on Monday, I think Ryan and Stuart were talking about this. I was walking up to the ground, coming down past House for an Art Lover, across there, down towards Brimley Road. 11:30, 11:45 type time, so an hour and a half, an hour and 15 before kick-off, there was Celtic supporters' buses going down there. And you're like, they were meant to, the whole thing was they were to be here at 10 o'clock, and that was it, done. So straight away, and you could see in the distance, Brimley Road was closed off. Police had cordoned it off, so they couldn't get across the roundabout at Edmondson Drive to go down Brimley Road to where their buses were. So the first thing that happened, you could see the buses get up towards Helen Street before the game. So you're like, something's not right here. We can already, you didn't even need to see it. And so that was the first part. There was very limited police, I felt, around Ibrox. See, we got there an hour before kick-off. Just didn't, it felt like the week before when there was 2,000 there. It felt like the exact same. So it felt as if from that, even just at that point, this has just been treated the same as last week.
Yeah.
And then where I sit in the ground, I sit in the club deck near the front where the VAR station is. So I'm down that end. You've seen it happening. They were coming on. Craig saying he about turned straight after Jerry Gassama. I have to go up the way, so I was kind of looking down. You've seen the hoardings getting done in straight away. You've seen them heading towards the main stand enclosure. It just started straight away. And, you know, there was nothing from the Copeland at that point. So you've seen this build. You've seen the lack of police. You've seen the stewards. We all seen the videos of them getting through the disabled entrance to the Brimlin during the game. So we've seen all that. And it's like none of that stuff is being reported on to sit and say there was a series of failure points here that had built up to the very end. We are just looking at what happened at the last minute within the confine of a TV screen, and that's it. That's all we care about.
Yeah.
What happened at that point was not great. Don't want to see it. Shouldn't happen. Everybody who's involved in that will get their comeuppance, and they should get that. But everything that led up to that could have been avoided. And we will go far as back as to sit and say they shouldn't have had the increased allocation. Don't have the increased allocation, go the same as the week before, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You have a proper policing plan. That doesn't happen at the weekend.
Mhm.
So we will take our portion of blame, rightly, in certain aspects where it's deserved, but it's not all our fault. And you can't just put it all at one door and sit and say, big bad Rangers fans. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So I am surprised the club hasn't at least put out a holding statement to say we acknowledge the events of the weekend. At this time, investigations are ongoing, and until they are complete and we fully understand what happened, we were making no further comment. Bang, done, acknowledged.
Yeah.
That's all we need.
Yeah.
My hope is that Rangers are going to come out and nail people to the wall, because Rangers are going to get all their ducks in a row, sit and say, here is the timeline of what happened, here before the game, here is the timeline of everything happened in the day, and here is who's responsible for that. It'll be the SFA and the police that should get it with both barrels.
Yeah.
So we're not seeing a balanced view on it, but are we used to it?
It's always the same, isn't it? It's always the same, John. And I think that's the reason why I want to bring this topic up tonight, because I don't think there's been a balanced view, and I think it's only right that we touch on that, because not just Rangers fans are feeling, not just Celtic fans, everyone's feeling it, right? And there's an agenda that's been driven at the moment on this one that I think we need to clarify. So, Stevie, I know you wanted to come in on this as well, because you'd obviously been saying after Monday you'd been listening to some of the coverage that had been said in this, and there was a comment that was made that by a presenter that you weren't quite happy with in terms of how it was used and stuff. But again, just in terms of it comes back to that media view again about from our view, and I think I've also spoken to people who are not Rangers or Celtic fans, and their view on this, if they read the media coverage, is it's all Rangers' fault, right? I've spoken to people from down in England who didn't watch the game, but they've seen the press coverage, and it's the Rangers fans have come in and done this. And I think that's a damning statement from me, because anyone who watched that would absolutely see there's wrongs across the sides there, not just in one area. But what's your take, Stephen? And what was the point that got you annoyed on Monday on that one? Mate?
I mean, I don't think I can put it any more eloquently than what John just did. I mean, he's absolutely spot on there. You know, there's blame across the board, but particularly the way it was policed, the way it was organised, the way the ticket allocation went. And it's not like we've not done this before. You know, I mean, Celtic used to get that stand all the time. You've got games at Hampden that are well policed. You know, so there's a huge failing on that part. But yeah, I was listening to Radio Scotland on Monday morning. It was Martin Geisler. I was going to say he's a journalist, but I don't think anybody who works for the BBC is really a journalist, but that's another podcast. But it was very much just, the Celtic fans were just celebrating, it was fine. And like right away, like, no, it's no fine, because you don't enter the pitch if you're a fan. That's just a rule. We Rangers fans never really jump on the pitch. Maybe a wee bit overspill when a goal was in the last minute, but they never invade the pitch, except when obviously it happened there in the 2016 the Cup final with the Hibs fans. His guest was this guy for the Police Federation. He was called David, I think it was Threadgold. And he came across very well, because he went straight back to Geisler and he said no. The Rangers fans would not have been on the pitch if the Celtic fans had not invaded it. And that doesn't excuse what happened thereafter. There's obviously been violence for both sides. It doesn't excuse it, but he made the point, said it would not have happened if there'd been a proper police cordon to stop the Celtic fans invading the pitch, and he's spot on. That's the crux of it. If it had been done better, done properly, that could have been completely avoided. So it just, as John said, there's failings at so many levels. SFA, the police, obviously we can't condone the violence. The guy getting the kicking next to the bus outside the stadium, but again, where's the segregation? I mean, I've been to like 100 Old Firm games, and I never really see Celtic fans unless you're in the stadium, and that's how it should be. Unless you're really going looking for it, you'll find them. But, you know, it was just so many levels, so many facets that could have been done better. And I think across the board, everybody needs to take ownership. We always talk about players taking responsibility, taking ownership. I think the only way to come out of this and be like productive is to actually everybody hold their hands up who's to fault, you know, who's got and blame. And then we can build going forward, because it's a terrible look. And I keep thinking about the owners. Do you think the Niners group and Andrew Kavanagh want that? They came here to get the Champions League and win trophies. That's the last thing they want. So it's not a good look for anybody. So yeah, but just that bias, it's unacceptable. It's just such an age-old thing that, it's Rangers' fault. Now, I'm not saying we're not to blame for some of it, obviously. Some of the behaviour you can't accept, and you should know it should be condoned, but let's get it right. it's not just Rangers who's at fault in this situation, not at all.
Craig, just as Stevie saying there, I couldn't agree more with John and Stevie in terms of there was multiple failings on Sunday, in my view. Which let's just hit this off the bat. We're a football podcast and we want to talk about football, right? But unfortunately, these things have dominated again when it shouldn't really. And we have to address it in some sort of way, because if we don't, we're seen to try and hide it or sweep it under the carpet, and that's not what we want to do, right? So as a Rangers fan base, we want to make sure that everyone is safe when they come to Ibrox. Same with when our fans go away, you want everyone to be safe. There was multiple failings, both from Rangers, Celtic, players, stewards, police, fans. There was lots of failings there. My question to yourself, Craig, is off the back of, we've been hearing again, it's been getting thrown about. I think there was a discussion in Parliament today about it, about this age-old strict liability conversation, right?
Yeah.
In a situation like Sunday, when you've got clearly a situation where you can see in that Broomloan, you could not see the staircases. You knew that stadium was overcrowded, whether that's through people charging through exits like we've seen, or whether that's the other rumour that's going about is there was multiple tickets on sale and all that sort of thing and blah, 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 and more than an allocation. Whatever the answer is to that, in that situation, does strict liability work for you, in your opinion? Or is there too many failings in that space where you look at it and you say everyone has to take a share of the blame and there has to be learnings across the board? What would your view be, Craig?
When you say strict liability, are you saying the stadium it happens in, the people who run that stadium are the ones who are responsible, whatever happens?
That's the discussion.
Yeah,
that's the discussion that we said in Parliament today, is that the ultimate responsibility should lie with these people controlling the stadium and the ones who are allowing these fans in, essentially, is what the discussion was today. Does that work in your opinion?
Well, I'm in no way comparing the events because they're completely incomparable. But of course, you know, when we talk about multiple failings, etc., it took a very, very long time for the truth to come out about the Hillsborough disaster, but it did eventually. And there was very much a sort of feel at the time about what was going on there, that it was football fans because they're all unruly and they're all this, that and the other and stuff. And as time's gone on and it's been looked into, again, there were multiple failings. There was the ground, there was the police, there was and I can't say, I think it's just kicking the can down the road to say strict liability is the way it goes. You really have to examine this stuff because you've got to look to the future. You know, there's going to be at least two Old Firm games at Ibrox next season. Now, okay, the allocations are now a bit more controllable, and this is an event that doesn't really happen anymore. Maybe if it happened again in 3 weeks' time, they'd learn from what happened on Sunday and make sure it didn't happen again, because they will have looked into these things, but they have to examine everybody's part in this the whole way across the board and work out what it is. Because, looking across the stadium on Sunday, it was absolutely heaving in there, you know, to a point it almost looked like a terrace, really, than not a stand. So, you know, there were a lot of people in there, and that could also have been just because people just went where they wanted, and so there were big concentrations of areas. But then again, when you talk about stadium disasters in the past, that's one of the big problems with that. So it's the safety of people in there, because I suspect a lot of the people in the Broomloan on Sunday didn't want anywhere near that either. You know, they went to watch the match. And you have to take that on board. So no, I'm not a big fan of strict liability anyway. I've been a lawyer for 35 years, so I think there's always someone that's at fault, and it's getting to the stage of that, and sometimes more than one person. And I think that was the case on Sunday.
Absolutely. John, do you want to come in there, mate?
Just to come back in quickly, if you're talking about strict liability and passing it to who's in charge of the stadium, well, does it pass back to the SFA when they enforce the ticket allocation?
Yeah.
Because Rangers would just turn around and say, you're getting 800 tickets, and that's it, because if we're going to be in charge of this. So you tread a very fine line there between, well, you're going to enforce something on me and an amount of people, you take on that liability. And you would watch the SFA run for cover.
And I think, John, it's a really good point you're making. I hope that Rangers are doing their due diligence with this in the background, because we all know that the SFA forced the 7,000 on them, and they even threatened to go to 10,000 if they didn't implement what they wanted to do. Again, that just fills me with absolute dread when you think about what it could have been like if there was 10,000 there on that one. But I think your point's absolutely valid. The SFA needs to take accountability of this as well, because it was their points that put out to say they had to have that many in the stadium. Look, I get the whole added point around the atmosphere, and people talk about the atmosphere, right? I get all that, and the atmosphere sounded incredible from the TV, from watching it, and I'm sure you guys would say the same for being in the stadium. But I would take safety over atmosphere any day, and I'm sure you guys would be the same. And I think anyone would be. Look, I'll be very honest. I've spoke to both Rangers and Celtic fans over the last couple of days, and the vast majority of them condemn what happened there on Sunday.
Yeah.
The vast majority of them are all in agreement that shouldn't have happened. There was issues put out there that neither set of fans want to see in a long term, right? But I think the whole reason for this conversation bringing it up, as I said, is because it isn't just one person to blame. There was multiple feelings across the day on Sunday, and I think if we didn't address that, we could have been seen to sweep it under the carpet, and I really didn't want to do that with us, guys. So thank you for taking the last 10 minutes or so to do that, guys. It was definitely a worthwhile discussion to have. Sorry, Stevie. Yeah.
Just one last really quick point. Celtic have banned a lot of those supporters for their stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they get tickets for this game? It's madness. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, mate. It's crazy. If they've been on their other foot, we as Rangers fans, and any Rangers fan would be asking, why is a group of supporters who've been banned from your home stadium being allowed into your visiting stadium? It's mental. It's mental that could have happened, and how it happened is just crazy. So again, that's one of those multiple feelings. That's not the only issue. That's not the only way of why it happened, but it's one of the issues that I think needs to be addressed. And I hope Rangers are doing that in the background, gents. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out and where we go from there. Back to the football matters, if we can, and we will just jump back to our Who's That Jer. So this is number 3 that we're going to give you just now, and we'll also give you number 4 in a wee second. So back to the Who's That Jer. Guess the player. Clue number 1, I made my Rangers debut against Kilmarnock, and it was Walter Smith era part 2. Second clue is, in addition to Rangers, I played for Stoke City, among others. And then the third clue, which is a new one, I primarily played in midfield. So again, some of the names that have been put on could be the guess on this one. But there's another one for you. So that's clue number 3. And clue number 4, if I bring this up, I've scored a few impressive long distance goals in my career. So there you go. That's clue number 4. 4 incredible clues there, which I'm sure you will all be able to see. And I'm sure that will put some names in for everyone. Craig, don't give it away, but are you close to guessing it, do you think?
I think I've got it. Yeah, I think I had it at Stoke.
There you go. Perfect. What about you, Stevie? Do you think you're close to getting it? You're on mute, Stevie.
Schoolboy, sorry. Yeah, I think I know what it is. I don't like him.
Fair enough. Well, we'll come back in another 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes or so, and we'll give you clue number 5, and then we'll reveal who the person is. And if you do think you know who it is, pop your answers in. Stevie said Amdi Faye. Remember Amdi Faye? He was a player. I remember him back in his day. And the other one, Doddington, is saying Charlie Adam again. He's been a popular one. It's been coming up. So a few people think it might be him. So we'll reveal in about 10 minutes who it might be. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, let's get back to the football. Guys, Craig, if I can start with yourself on the football side of things. We have got a massive 9 games coming up. As Danny Rose said in his post-match, 9 cup finals. The players have promised each other that they're going to make as tough to beat as possible. That should start on Sunday. We're hearing that Aberdeen and St Mirren may be in discussion around Stephen Robinson and Stephen Robinson moving on. So that again makes it an unknown for Sunday. Is Sunday a potential banana skin for you, Craig, or is Sunday one of those ones where we should be going out there and really enforcing our style of play on them and really using that as that one of 9 cup finals?
Yeah, I think this is events over the last week have made this game much, much bigger than maybe anybody could have even envisaged a couple of weeks ago. I think if we don't win on Sunday, then it's going to be incredibly difficult, even if the other teams slip up around us, that actually, because we need to take that chance. And I think it's that thing about, you mentioned being hard to beat. We are incredibly hard to beat in Scotland. The problem is that we're struggling to beat other teams as well. And it's been these draws that have done it, because we only lost 2 league games all season, the 2 games against Hearts. So it's such an odd season and such an odd sort of train of events, because obviously there's been a lot of talk going on the WhatsApp group over the last day or two about various things and stuff and mentality of players and all sorts of things. But we still have, since Rule arrived, the best record in the SPFL. The problem is, though, over the last 3 or 4 games, that's when it's really started to crack, which is a shame. And we need that win to get ourselves back on track. And a comfortable, no frills, no scares, no alarms, no bookings, no reds, no whatever, and just get on track. And there'll only be 8 games to go, because if we win the last 9 games, I think we will win the league. I'm not sure we're going to win the next 9 games, but, I do think that even though mathematically another team could finish above, I think that would probably do it, given the games that are left to play. But yeah, we need to win this one and see where we are. Yeah,
absolutely. John, I can come to yourself, just sticking on the theme of going forward and mentality and all the stuff that goes with it. You spoke earlier about saying it'd have been good if we had a home game to maybe get into it. I'll be honest, I'll take a different view to that. I think if we had a home game this weekend and you don't score an early goal, it could have another impact to the team. And to that point in time, you could then start to see the wheels fall off, right? I'm hoping that this isn't the story we've seen from past. So I think, as it Scream's out now, number 7th movie of Scream, this is probably the 7th time Rangers have probably faltered and fell apart at this stage of the season. I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. So again, talking about quality and mentality and stuff, our good friend Doug put a question in earlier on. Now, this was when we were having the discussion with Celtic and things, but I thought I wanted to keep it to this part because I think it ties in. So Doug is saying, how would you put the balance of need between quality and mentality, 60-40, 50-50 or other? Having dominated both legs against Celtic, do we simply need better quality of player or mentality of player? So thinking about Sunday, you get into that game on Sunday, St Mirren haven't been firing all cylinders at all. I think they win in the cup against Partick Thistle, but they haven't been playing well. Does quality get you through Sunday? Or are Rangers players in the situation just now where we've seen this story before, the mentality of you didn't get the 2 wins against Celtic, what takes the main impact coming into Sunday, and what do you think we've got at this moment in time between that quality and mentality piece?
Getting to Sunday is 50-50 for me. It's going to be, half of it is going to be about the quality, because we have better players. We need those players to show their quality. The mentality part is for them to realise we are still in this. We're not done and dusted. We're not knocked out and on the floor. Still there for us. My concern, and this is where mentality will really come into it, is we play last at the top 3. Celtic Saturday afternoon, Hearts Saturday night, and then it's us. And I just hate when we're at the very end of it, because I'm never sure the players are like, right, come on, need to hit this hard, go and get it. And that's why I felt as if we had a home game, the crowd has answered the call, full house, full voice, full 90. I feel as if we've done that. So I think if we were playing Sunday afternoon after the 3-hour home game against St Mirren, the crowd would be right up for it to push them through that. So I think we need to see better quality from the players. I think we need to see better quality from the manager in terms of how we approach the game.
Yeah.
And I need them all to have the right mentality that says, let's go and do this. We can do this. We're better than this team. Let's go and show it.
Yeah. Stevie, looking at, I was just saying, Craig there and obviously John about the change in manager potentially could happen. I think that will go through from reading the reports today. Does that change how Rangers set up the things come Sunday? Given the fact that Rangers knew how Stephen Robinson probably played in terms of the games before, St Mirren are always a tough side to play against. the Smiza Stadium. They're always well organised, they're always well drilled, and we always tend to struggle over there. So I'm hoping that's not the case on Sunday. But does the change of manager do anything different for yourself, or is this all about how Danny Rule sets up and the quality that we've got to be able to push on in this game, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, it should just be all about us. The quality is far superior. You know, we should be going there and, you know, having the attitude that we are Rangers, we're going to blow them away.
Mm-hmm.
They're weakened by Robinson moving on, which I think they will be. Great. However, the last away game we won in Scotland was the 11th of January at Aberdeen, and we know how dreadful they are. And that's a damning stat. You know, it's the away form. The draws have absolutely killed us in the last couple of months. You know, even if we'd won half of those games that we'd drawn, we'd be top of the league probably. So yeah, I think the question Doug asked about the mentality, I still don't know. I don't know if they've got it. There's so many in that team for Sunday that I would be glad to see the back of, particularly Suter, Raskin. I mean, we're talking about 30 million for Raskin in January. I'd bite your hand off for that. I really would. I mean, and it might be that's what we need, because at this stage we're probably third favourites for the league. So the Champions League is very unlikely at this stage. So I think we're going to have to see a couple of big player sales to really reinvest in the squad. I'm confident that can happen. You look at the business done last year, getting 6 million for Jeff and stuff. So there's previous there that we can get decent fees now and reinvest it. But yeah, I think St Mirren might be weakened. I mean, they're losing a really good manager. I like Robinson, he's a good guy. But at the same time, our record against St Mirren in the last couple of years is pretty woeful. So they'll fancy it. They're at home, and they'll want to kind of show. I mean, they've not been in a good run themselves, so they want to show, you know, pride and try and get a result against. It's first goal. I think if they score first, it's a really long afternoon for us. If we can get on the score sheet first and then put our foot on their throat. I always think with Rangers, we score again, then great. But it's when we start slowly, it kind of scunners us. So we need to be on it for the first whistle.
I'm glad you touched on that, Stevie, about that mentality of continuing to go forward, because one thing I would say is a big frustration of Danny Rule against Hibs, especially, and obviously Motherwell. We got the goal from Motherwell, and we just didn't push forward on that. It's as if he sat back and he made those defensive subs, and that kind of killed us a little bit. The Hibs game, we pushed forward towards the end. Mikey Moore obviously get the goal. My opinion was not offside, but it was offside. Are we seeing enough from Danny Rule in terms of attacking mentality in the games? Because again, if you look at the 2 games against Celtic, we've had more than enough chances to win 3 or 4 games in those 2 games, right? So from a home perspective, that I don't think that can be argued. We just don't have the quality there to finish that. But on our away side of things, is it the mentality that Danny Rule is setting them up with that says, go out, get the first goal, then hold it, or if you're not getting the first goal, then throw everything in the last 10 minutes? Is that going to be enough, do you think, come Sunday, or do we really need to be putting 2 or 3 away early in that one, do you think?
Is that for me then,
yes,
Chris?
Yes, Chris.
Yeah. I think I would go with that, because unfortunately we have a mindset as supporters whereby if we're 1 goal up, even, we just know somebody's going to have a swing at something from 25 yards and it's going to go in the top corner. And that feeds through, because that's an anxiety that all of the fans have. And so, yes, we need to score first on Sunday, but we need to score again. And we need to do that thing that one of the other teams in the country was doing a while ago, where you'd be 2 or 3 up after an hour, and then you could take your foot off the gas. You'd earned the right to do that. And that attacking mentality didn't have to become an issue. And I think that's where this team needs to get itself to. But I think we're a way away from it yet. And I think it's evolving. But I think maybe we're expecting it to evolve a little bit too quickly as well. But obviously, next season would be the big acid test, because if you've got a full pre-season with players, you've got the players in that you want to start and stuff, then you really should be hitting the ground running. So I think the manager's got to pass to the end of this season, but I think he needs a big finish at very worst to ensure that we go into the next season, that he's backed, and that he's being backed not just by the club, but by the fans. Yeah,
absolutely. Totally agree. Okay, before we go on to our next question, we've got another question we've got landed in. Before I go on to that and go to yourself, John, we're going to just finish off Who's That Jer? So let's bring up number 5. So number 5, clue number 5. Now we'll come to that in a wee second. But you seen before, clue 1 was made my Rangers debut against Kilmarnock, Walter Smith era part 2. In addition to Rangers, I played for Stoke City among others. Clue 3 was I primarily played in midfield. The number 4, and I'm sure people are starting to pick up who it is now. I've scored a few impressive long distance goals in my career. And clue number 5, I am best remembered for a last minute winner against Celtic. Now, there's been a couple of people who put the names in earlier on, which I won't put on just yet. But John's laughing because he knows who it is. Stevie, you're probably pivoting 360 here. You're thinking, is this somebody totally different? Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, the last minute goal against Celtic. I mean, it's got to be
the one that you said, do you think?
No, it's got to be Mo. It's got to be Mo Adu, surely.
Craig, what's your thoughts?
I immediately thought that myself, Stevie.
Yeah.
So just really quickly, that last minute winner, if it is him, I watched it in a pub in Edinburgh and I ran up the wall. I was about 10 feet up the wall when that one. It was amazing.
I was in the club deck for that one, actually, and I bought one of the kids a water bottle to take home. I don't know where it went. Literally, like, the last I saw of it.
Tremendous. Well, let's, without any further ado, let's bring up the answer, and the answer is Maurice Edu. So Maurice Edu made his Rangers debut against Kilmarnock. I think it was a 2-1 win we had in that game. Walter Smith era part 2. He played, Craig, to your point, I think he played one game for Stoke is what he played. He came on as a sub against Liverpool. Right. And I think it was 80 minutes into the game, I think, is the information I got. Primarily played in midfield. He also played in defence as well. He did slot into centre back a couple of times. Scored a few impressive long distance goals in his career. Somebody's asking in the comments, did Edu score goals from distance? He did. He scored one when he was in America. He scored quite a few goals over there. I think he scored one for Rangers. I can't remember who it was against, but he scored one for Rangers. I think it might be Valencia, and then it was given as offside, which was never offside, I think, as well. So he scored one of them for us. And then obviously he's best remembered for a last minute winner against Celtic, which was that one that I think it won as the second title under Walter Smith, when on that win of 3 in a row. I think it was the second one that kind of helped us get over the line. I think that took us to 10 or 11 points clear of Celtic at that point in time. So if anyone got it in the comments, I'm sure a few of you did. Well done, and thank you for playing along. And when we come back next week, we'll have another guess the player and who's that Jer for you to do. But again, big thanks to Doug for pulling all that together and putting all the information in. It was greatly appreciated. Again, thanks to Doug. He's the one firing all the questions, guys. If you've got any questions you want the gents to ask, fire them in and we will absolutely get to them. And we'll see if we can answer them before we end up tonight. A question that Doug has put on, and I just wanted to bring this up, John. I want to start with yourself in this one. So one of the things we've been seeing over the last few years is the decline in the coefficient for Scotland and the impact that's going to have on the likes of Rangers and other clubs within the SPFL. I want to say it's next season. I might be wrong in saying this. I don't know if it's next season or the season after, but it's going to get to a point where the second place team isn't going to get Champions League. They're not even going to get Europa League. I think it's the Winter Conference League, and the Europa League goes to the Scottish Cup. Now, forgive me, I can't remember if that's this season coming that happens or whether it's the following one. Stevie, you're saying this season, is that right? Is it this season coming? Because I couldn't remember exactly what it was. So the question that we've got from our Doug, and I'll happily take views from all three on this, on this one, is would the Conference League provide an enticing opportunity to win a European trophy if we can rediscover our European form in the future season, or does it not excite you? Obviously, John, to answer this one, that's assuming Rangers finish second. We're hoping Rangers are going to finish first, as is our good friend Doug. But if the opportunity came around and we had to get into the Conference League for whatever reason, does that give Rangers a really good opportunity to win it, or would it be seen as the ugly sister of all the European trophies?
Both, probably. I think the initial part would be not where we want to be. Teams are a bit rubbish. Away trips aren't as big as what Europa League and Champions League would be. Smaller stadiums. It's a bit rubbish. And then you get a couple of good results and all of a sudden you're like, right, where's the final? That's the general rule every year, isn't it? I think I think my thing with this would be is I'd really just like to win a league. I think if you came to me 4 years ago, I said I'd rather have had that Europa League that year in Seville than the league. That's fine at that point, because we'd won a league a couple of seasons before. But now, winning a championship is far more appealing to me than any European trophy right now. But, that'll come back.
Absolutely. Stevie, what's your take on this one? Is this a... Look, and I'll back Doug up in this one. There'll come a point in time where if the coefficient keeps declining, the winners of the Scottish Premiership will end up in the Conference League. That's probably what will happen if we keep going the same way we're going in. So it's a worthwhile equation, I think, because no roads are leading anytime soon to two in the Champions League or two in the Europa League at that point. All roads are leading to the Conference League as it currently stands for a lot of those Scottish clubs, whether that's Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, or whoever it may be. There is going to be roads leading to that. Is this something for you? Would you take that Conference League as that opportunity? Or if Rangers were to be in at that point in time, would you say that's an opportunity to play your weekend side and focus on the league at that point in time? Or do both come hand in hand as being vitally important? What's your take on that one, Stevie?
I mean, obviously, we need to try and win it if we're in it. But the way the team is just now, I don't think we'd even win the Conference League, to be fair. But we're not clinical enough. But hopefully there's a big summer to come with a lot of investment and, decent players coming in. But it doesn't appeal. I mean, I've got to say, you look at West Ham when they won it. I mean, they went to the final and won it, and I think their total revenue is about 20 million, which is probably less than half of what you get for the Champions League, just the initial stages or getting to the group stages. So, yeah, financially, it's not a great return either. But if that's what we're in, then I would definitely try and go all the way, because ultimately it's a competition there. It will be won. But I agree with John. It's like everything's about winning the title. That's the most important thing domestically. I guess if you won the Conference League, you're then guaranteed Europa League football the next year.
Yeah.
But our aim's got to be, to get back to the Champions League, win the title in Scotland, and get that qualification for the biggest prize. Because ultimately, that's what the owners are after. They want Rangers in the Champions League. They want the Knights under the lights with that Champions League anthem blaring. That's got to be their aim. But we're a long way for that team in Seville. Even last season in Europe, we were really decent. A lot of damage was done at the start of the season with Terry Vegetables, as I call him. Kind of undone a lot of what we'd built up over a long time. Gerrard, 2018 he took over and he really built it straight away. You think of those first qualifying games that were so exciting. Just to get through the group stage of Europa, and it kind of built from there year by year. He was. I know we got to Seville under Gio, but Gerrard was such a big part of building that strength, that experience, and now the team doesn't really have that. So maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing, to start building players' experience again. But I think it'll be a long way back to the Champions League, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Craig, you've obviously seen Danny Rowe build his small side in the January transfer window with the signings he's brought in. With the players that are there, with what Danny has brought in, and potentially with some outgoings and some cash being freed up for the summer, do you think Rangers can build a team in the next 12 to 18 months that can get back competing again? Because this year we haven't competed at all within Europe. Could we compete to that level where it would be conference level, or could we even compete to Europa League level? I'm taking that as an example. Best case scenario, you win the league and you've got to compete to Champions League level, but is that something that you can see, regardless of what competition we're going to be in, that Danny Rowe can do in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think I've got a lot of belief that we are not at the bottom, but we're coming out of the bottom of this cycle and where we are. And I think it definitely will get a lot better. I do think that some of the signings he's made in January, we kind of forget they've hardly been in through the door. Some of them look like they are good players. The hope is that he'll be able to bring players in over the summer and have proper time to work with them. And of course, all the people he inherited were not necessarily players that he would have wanted in any event, but he seems to have got a decent tune out of quite a few of them. I think Fernandes being the classic example of a player who we'd all pretty much written off, but he now seems to be someone who I think we get a lot more money than we paid for him if he were to move in the close season. So I think it's there, but I think the big work has to be on environment and to make sure that you create and when we talk about mentality, I think we talk about it individually. I think there has to be a mentality throughout the club whereby players do want to play because they know if they don't, a lad's going to come in and play better than them, and they could be out for 5-6 weeks, and the team's going on, it's winning every week. Everybody wants to be a part of it, and that feel-good factor feeds in. And I think that's the big key thing he has to do, because Tottenham, Manchester United, they've spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds on players who aren't cutting it for whatever reason, and they're not bad players, but there's something really wrong there that you just can't put your finger on. And I think we need to get on top of that. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad here now. I think maybe at the start of the season, that's the way we were probably heading. But I think we need to get on top of that before we bring players in, because you bring players into that environment, they'll thrive, and you probably get 8 good ones out of 10, because you're always going to get a couple of duds. But yeah, so I hope so. But I still have a lot of faith in the manager, and I think he can do a lot better once he's given the chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point you make. I think there's been a lot of talk on the last couple of days, social media, about Danny Rule and people questioning, does he have what it takes to get Rangers over the line? I think my view in this, and this is me not saying to people how they should think or how they should take it, but my view in this situation just now is, after any game, whether it's we get beat or we draw or whatever, the automatic thing is you turn around and will say, just out of anger, is get rid of the manager, right? I've done that in WhatsApp groups to pals, to everyone, right? When you sit back and you look at the cold light of day, you look and you say to yourself, look where Danny Rule was taking the squad from where it was at the start of the season to now, with very, very little change happening. Okay, yes, you brought in a couple of players, but he's made some big strides, and I think that tells us something. Yes, we know Russell Martin took us to a really low depth and it couldn't have got any lower, but I don't think any of us can envisage we'd be sitting with 9 games to go and we're only 6 behind in the title race, right? I don't think anyone would have even envisaged that. I think a lot of us were saying mid-table, potential relegation battle at certain points. So he's done an incredible job. I'm really excited to see what we do bring in the summer and what that might look like going forward. So I think it was a really good point you made there about Danny Rule, because there's been a lot of negativity. And look, I can understand why, because everyone's frustrated, everyone's angry. But I think, to your point, Craig, he's done a good job so far. And I think we just need to give him that time over the summer to try and go again, because we can't continue to sack managers. That's not the answer. We need to do something. Yeah. We need to go forward with it. So, yeah, definitely on that one. Our boss is just, I want to touch on this really quickly, guys. I'm conscious we've got about 3 minutes left, right? And our boss has put a comment in that I want to touch upon here, because this was the last topic I wanted to cover off tonight. So, our boss has said Red Bull Rangers will come in the summer, trust me. Now, I am hoping he's not just meaning Red Bull will turn up in the kiosk and they start selling cans of Red Bull, right? I'm really hoping that's not the case at all. I really want to see something coming in investment-wise. So I wanted to really just get the three of these guys a bit of thought in this. So, John, first of all, for yourself, we spoke about this, I think, 2 or 3 months ago, and we spoke about the opportunity of new investment, new sponsorships, American companies maybe coming in, and your mindset automatically thinks about that because 49ers, American company, etc. Do you think there's things happening in the background which is maybe going to be left to next season because maybe existing contracts are in place, or are you slightly disappointed or frustrated that we've not seen enough coming through, like what Scotty's put on Red Bull Rangers, for example? Do you think there's something there, or would you have liked to see more activity so far?
I would expect things are happening and will come to fruition come the summer. I imagine that the new owners have to give themselves 12 months to bed in, get a handle on everything that's there. They can't come in day one and say, right, Christo, Umbro, you're out the door, new sponsors on the front of shirts, without understanding the lay of the land. So I imagine that things like that will come. I'm fairly certain that's why they're willing to put that much investment in, is because they know what they're looking and trying to do and trying to bring in kind of sponsorship wise and things like that. So yeah, I also think as well, we've been through turmoil and upheaval structurally within the executive part of the club.
Yeah.
So I mean, I put a comment on one of the WhatsApp groups the other day saying, our incoming CEO seems to be on a never-ending notice period right now, and it'd be really nice to get him in the door, because everything we've seen on Sunday, we have a CEO managing that. So I imagine that once those guys are in position, some of these bigger deals and things will happen naturally come the end of the season.
Yeah. Be really interesting though, John, to see what side of the stand he sits on this coming Sunday, whether it's the St Mirren end or whether he sits the Rangers end, because I would imagine he'll be at the game on Sunday, so you never know where he's going to sit.
We're watching the telly just for ease.
I was going to say that you can just imagine the camera panning to him when Rangers score, can't you, and seeing his face at that point and wondering what's his reaction at that point in time. But yeah, it's one of those ones. Stevie, what's your take on the whole investment side? Obviously, Rangers have spent a lot of money this season. They've spent, as some people tell you, 50, 60, 70 million in certain areas, right? Obviously, I don't know the figure off the top of my head, and I don't think we'll know that anytime soon. But are you expecting, as Scotty's saying, Red Bull Rangers, or folks, other energy brands are out there, just in case anyone thinks we're favouring Red Bull, we're not. What's your take on this one? Do you think that that's something that will come, and Rangers are maybe holding something big in the background, do you think, Stevie?
Yeah, I fully expect to see that sponsor across the shirt in the next couple of years. I'm pretty certain it's going to happen. And I know a lot's been spent this season, but it was needed, and we need more, because obviously the squad's been unbalanced and weak for a long time under the previous regime. So yeah, investment is definitely needed, and players still have to leave. Like I say, I think we'll get a decent fee for Raskin, possibly Suter. So there's going to be money coming in, revenue that way. Can I just quickly respond to Donington? He just stole something out of my head. I've been thinking all week about the spine of the team. I think back before my time, but obviously I know the history and stuff. But when Graham Souness came in, he signed Chris Woods and Terry Butcher straight away. It was straight away. He was like, boom, there's like rock, solid cement down the middle of that team. Even a little bit later, the guys like Ray Wilkins. I know we can't go out and say Jordan Pickford or, guys like that, but he still needs that. He's working just now with a real spine in the team, and that to me is the key for this summer. I know Cornelius looked like a pretty decent centre back, maybe like a ball playing centre back or a second centre back, but to me that's the key. Whatever investment comes in, we still need a really good centre back, maybe a goalkeeper. Butland's been good all season, but he's had his errors, so I don't know if his place is under threat, and definitely a striker, a clinical finisher. I wish we'd signed Shankland 2 years ago. I think we'd be a lot happier if we'd done that 2 years ago. But yeah, that to me is the key. I expect investment, but like I say, he's got to get the right backing, and he's got to really put a spine into that team, because he's kind of working with one of his hands tied behind his back just now.
Absolutely. Craig, I'm going to give you the last word, whether you want to follow one from Steve in terms of the spine of the team, or whether you want to follow one from myself and John on the financial aspect of the club.
Red Bull Ranger. I could probably do a pod on my own about that one, because obviously I've seen how these guys operate down here in Leeds. And Scotty has a liking for Leeds as well as an English team. And where he was coming from with that was the absolutely monstrous sponsorship deal that Leeds United did with Red Bull through the 49ers. And it's a bit of, it's a huge one in comparison to what other clubs are getting. And this is the sort of financial clout that they can bring in. And so Red Bull, it's not a case of other soft drinks are available. They actually have that link, and that could be where it's going. Now, the interesting thing is down at Leeds United, because they get £100 million a year from TV, as long as they don't get relegated this season, they see that as a threat to their identity and what have you. Whereas up here, because it's an opportunity for us to move ourselves up into a much bigger financial straight, where that TV money's been thrown away by an awful deal by the people who run the SPFL. We see it more as an opportunity, and I think we need to look at that. But yes, are they doing stuff? They absolutely are. There'll be people coming in. There'll be teams of people looking at players already. Looking at down here, they look at the size of players. They decided that the way to survive in the Premier League was to have players over 6 foot of a certain build and stuff. They're going into it in a really, really scientific way. And so they don't have to tell us this. Do you know what I mean? We just have to see the effect of it, and we can judge them at the end of the season. But there's a lot of sort of calls of, they're not doing anything because they haven't told us that they're buying somebody or whatever. Then suddenly somebody comes in through the door a couple of days later. Just, enjoy it while it's happening. But yeah, I think financially they can move us into a new stratosphere within the constraints that we can have, because PSR is always going to be that big problem, which Newcastle have found out with bottomless pit of wealth, but they're not allowed to spend any money.
Yeah, absolutely. Gents, thank you. Listen, these last 65 minutes have flown by. I've kind of lost track of time a little bit, so apologies on that one. But thank you for answering all the questions. Thank you to Doug for putting all his questions in, because he kept firing his over questions. And folks, thank you to everyone at home for all your comments that he's been putting in. Tried to bring up as many as we can on screen. So if we didn't get to your comment, we do apologise. We hope you liked Who's That Player? Guess the Jar, and we'll have another one for you for next week on that one. But John, thank you for your time this evening. Some hard-hitting questions came your way, and you answered them all perfectly, mate. So thank you very much for that.
No, thank you very much for having me on. And it was a good chat with the guys as always.
Absolutely. Stevie, thank you as well, mate. Your wisdom on the topics that we talked about tonight and information you gave us spot on as always, mate. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
You're a charmer, Chris. You're a charmer. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And Craig, listen, I don't know, somebody's commenting in the background. I don't know what background that is that you've got, but whatever it is that you've got on there, it's an absolute classic, mate. It really is. So
Yeah.
I love it. You bring a
Wendy
bit
fancied herself as a bit of an interior decorator, so yeah, you don't even want to know how much this bloody wallpaper costs. More than the house.
I can imagine. Craig, thank you for all your input tonight, and for making it here safely. We really appreciate it, mate. It was absolutely fantastic to have you on tonight, mate.
Cheers. Thanks, Chris.
Folks, thank you. Last shout goes out to you guys. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for tuning in. It's been some great discussions. We'll be back again next week to do it. But obviously, in the scheme of things, the Rangers Journal's got loads of things on through the course of the week. We'll have our new show on Friday. We'll have a pre and post match for St Mirren Sunday, which will hopefully be a good 3 points that we're talking about in that tip race. Hopefully the results go other ways for us. And to your point, John, about being last on Sunday out the three teams, I'm feeling that as well. Maybe I'm taking it as a positive. I'm hoping we'll get some good results elsewhere. So we'll see how that plays out, and hopefully we get a good result on Sunday. Folks, listen, you know the saying, Red Bull gives you wings. It certainly is going to give us wings, because we're going to fly off into the sunset just now. But look, one thing it's guaranteed, might not have wings, but one thing it is guaranteed is that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Have a good one, folks. Good night.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.